and welcome to SoCal Prep Report. I'm your host, Randy Rosenbloom, and as you can see, I'm not at my house. I'm not in North Hollywood. We're finally back in the studio here at LA 36, and we're thrilled to be here because that means we've improved a little bit with the COVID situation to come back in-house. Of course, as always, we're joined by Tarek Fattal of the Daily News, and Tarek's in a good mood tonight because he gets to cover the Boris Classic and talk about UCLA and USC basketball, which is one of his beats, UCLA. Tarek, good evening.
How's it going, Randy? Good to see you. Always good to be in the studio. A little bit different. I've got a little bit nicer suit on. Usually, I'll be honest, I'm usually in my pajamas when I'm talking to you. Having done it from remote, it's good to be in studio talking sports, and we've got some good guests on deck for tonight. That's
too much information about what your apparel is when you're on the air. Let's talk first about the Boris Classic. We're into the semifinals. The games are actually going on right now. Notre Dame, who I know you've been covering and has gotten great pitching in this tournament, is losing in the 7th inning tonight to Villa Park.
Yeah, to be honest, when the tournament started, I thought Sierra Canyon was going to make a run, get a little deeper. They lost their first-round game. It's been Notre Dame that's been more the surprise, and right now they were down to 1 out, trailing to Villa Park. Cole Clark, though, you alluded to the good pitching. Cole Clark in that first game for Notre Dame was the one who got them their first win. And, you know, again, it's Notre Dame. They're a Mission League team. They know how to play. It's Tom Dill. He's been there for a long time, and they're always going to be a tough out.
You know, we talked to Brett Kay last week, the head coach at J. Sarah. He told us he had a good team, an improving team, a young squad, and they're beating Orange Lutheran tonight at home in the other semifinal of the Boris Classic.
It's the Trinity League. They're always going to go at it. You can't rat off anybody, like you said, J. Sarah. It doesn't matter where they are in their league standings, second, third. They go up against anybody, and they're going to have a chance to win.
We're going to talk to Scott Pearson in a moment. He's the head baseball coach at Warren. He's been there 10 years. I knew him from his days at Roosevelt High School when he was doing great things with the Rough Riders, so we can talk city and southern section with Scott, and we'll get to him in a moment. But I do want to talk about SC and UCLA basketball because a lot of these guys are coming and going. Who's staying, who's opting out and going to play in the NBA draft? We just heard this week Johnny Juzang, the star of UCLA, the former Harvard-Westlake star, is going to be an NBA guy. At least he hopes to get drafted highly. And I know you cover that beat, Tarek. Your thoughts on some of the local guys who may move on?
If you would have told me Jaime Jaquez, Johnny Juzang, Jules Bernard, Cody Riley, David Singleton, I mean the list goes, Jake Kyman, Santa Margarita, these guys, I covered all of them in high school, and if you would have told me they were the core to a Final Four run a year ago, I probably would have looked at you like you had a third eye. But those guys, they got to the Sweet 16 this year. It's been great to see their development. Johnny Juzang declares for the NBA draft. We'll see where he goes. He's projected to be maybe a second-round pick, maybe late first round. Depends on the team. He can really shoot it. Jules Bernard, testing the NBA waters. We're not sure. He's going to keep his eligibility. So he has to June 1st to decide if he wants to keep his name in or not. Jaime Jaquez, we know he's sticking around. Peyton Watson's going to the NBA draft. Two names we're still waiting on, and that's David Singleton and center Miles Johnson. We're not so sure what they're going to do with UCLA. What about
USC? The Trojans have had movement. A lot of their players have moved out as well.
So Ethan Anderson and Agakpolo, I'm losing his name right now. That's right. Both of them went to Wyoming. They teamed up with Jake Kyman, and they transferred to Wyoming. So I don't know, all three of them teamed up, kind of a Pac-12 package over to Wyoming. That'll be fun to watch. I guarantee you Wyoming is going to have some more Southern California fans. So when it comes to USC, that's pretty much the wrapping it up. And I know Mobley, Isaiah Mobley is going to go to the NBA too. He declared for the NBA draft.
All right. Going back to UCLA for just a moment, today, Evan Manjikian, big guy, 6'8", played at Sierra Canyon, a role player for the Trailblazers, came off the bench. I loved his game. He gave them stability in the half-court game. They had stars like Amari Bailey, who's also going to UCLA. But Manjikian is going to walk on at UCLA. You cover the Bruins. Can he make an impact?
I don't anticipate Evan Manjikian getting on the floor for Mick Cronin. But you know what? It's bigger than that, in my opinion. Evan Manjikian was at Crescenta Valley, and he could have stayed at Crescenta Valley and probably been the Pacific League MVP. What did he do? He did what most kids don't. He took the road less traveled. He transferred to Sierra Canyon knowing his his minutes would be limited. That's what he did. He got better in practice and earned a walk-on spot at UCLA. He's 6'8", he can shoot the three. He's an extra big body they can use to bang it in practice. There's value in that. And you know what? He's going to get a great experience just being in Pauley Pavilion, being part of the team, and like you said, playing with a teammate like Amari Bailey.
Well, the baseball scene is what we're going to talk about. In the city section, it's still Granada Hills. The Highlanders are the best team. They haven't won an upper division city title in L.A. since 1984. The last time they got to Dodger Stadium was 86 at the highest level, and they lost to Grant. But they won it in 84. They did win invitational titles, which is the second 16. In the old days, they used to have the upper division of 16, and then the second 16 would have an invitational, and they won that 4 times between 2002 and 2010. But we do have Scott Pearson here, and he was in the LA City section at Roosevelt. Now he's the head coach at Warren. Scott, good evening.
Thanks. Good evening. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good to see you. I'm a little disappointed in you right now. You lost 5-0. Why are you our guest? You lost to Gar today. How'd that happen? You had a 10-game winning streak.
Yeah, I don't know. I shouldn't be on today.
No.
Should
No.
have me on yesterday.
Well, tell us about your club. Why are you good? You're obviously talented. Your club's in the top 25 in the LA Times poll. You've had a good run at Warren, but why is this team extra
It's a special group. These kids have been with, a lot of these kids have been with me for 4 years. We have 0 transfers, so that's one thing I'm very proud of our team. I mean, you look at a lot of these teams that are ranked, I think you have to have transfers to be really highly ranked nowadays, it seems like. But, you know, we have 0 transfers. They're all homegrown kids. 5 of the kids played varsity as freshmen, and, you know, we took our bumps a little bit that first year. But, you know, I love freshmen on the varsity because they grow up, they become, man, they're dudes, and they're the ones that carry you. And that's what's happening now. You know, they're bought in, and they're great kids of character, and we preach that a lot. We talk a lot about character almost as much as baseball. And when you have good character and you have good kids, then you're going to be successful.
I wanted to ask you, Coach, kind of what's your approach? Are you a game-by-game guy? Do you guys have a goal list, you know, win the league, playoffs, you know, win the championship? You know, how do you approach getting these guys prepared, especially when you have talent?
Yeah, we're game by game. We don't look past anybody. Even if the team doesn't have a very good record, like Gar this year, their record's not very good, but we know they're good and we know what they have, and they play a tough schedule. And we played a tough schedule this year, and we feel that it's going to prepare us for the playoffs this year in Division II. But no, we go game by game. Our goal is always to win league, and then obviously make a run in the playoffs and hopefully peak in the playoffs. Yeah.
I want to get back to that transfer thing you just brought up. Does it gall you when you lose to a team and you know that guy on the other side who beat you is a transfer?
Well, that's a great question. Our victory on Tuesday I was very proud of, because we have no transfers, and the team that we beat on Tuesday has quite a bit of transfers. And not just, you know, players, but, you know, great players, you know, top guys. And so that's very meaningful, you know, when you beat a team that's full of transfers. And
but what about when they beat you and you go back into the dugout and say, you know, darn it?
No.
That really bugs me. They have that extra advantage.
You know why, though? Because I always said back when they had that 1 year or 2 years of when you could transfer back in, I think, 2000, 2001, 2002. I forgot what they called it back then. But I always felt, and, you know, I was a recipient of a good one, Ricky Romero, you know, from our rival school. And I just felt, you know, you shouldn't be held hostage to your school. If there's a good program, you're going to get developed. And even back then, I think we were kind of way ahead of the game, is because our practice is a lot of development. Like, we work on developing kids. We want kids to be at the next level. And I tell the parents at our parent meeting, you know, our goal is not to win the CIF championship as much as it is to get your kid their college paid for. And so we do a lot of development stuff. It's practices are organized, and they're scripted by the minute, and we do a lot of ID stuff, and we want these kids to come out. So to answer your question, no, it doesn't. It's just the way it is now. Everyone transfers, and a lot of people think the grass is greener on the other side anyway. And
Until you get there and it's crabgrass.
Well, you know, we've had kids leave. You know, we've had kids leave, and 6 or 7 kids left in my 10 years there. 4 of them come back. So the grass is not greener on their side. And I just think, you know, travel. I coach travel. I coach my son's travel ball team. And
your son's here, right?
Yes.
What's his name?
Jaden.
Hello, Jaden.
So I don't like travel ball because there's a lot of things that are not being taught, and one of the things is loyalty, and so I think it ruins it when actually even with the parents, because the parents don't see that as well either. And there's a lot to be said about being loyal and working hard and grinding it out and competing to get better. And I think that goes by the wayside, and we kind of try to make that clear to our kids.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about your team? You know, give us some names, highlight some guys who's been throwing well, and you know, you had mentioned a freshman that has been doing really well as of late.
Yes.
Please, you know, give them their shine.
So one of our pitcher coming in top pitcher, Fregoso, and he's probably our top overall player as far as defense hitting and pitching. He's got a sore bicep, and we had to scratch him today before the game. But he's a guy that's got offers, that's been with us 4 years. Don Gonzalez is very hot right now. He threw 3 hitters, struck out 10 against Gar on Tuesday, and it was just lights out. Julian Angulo's Jr. that's been with me for 3 years. And he's kind of carried the offense. Another guy, Matthew Miller, who's DH first base, another 4-year varsity guy that's has the highest average on the team right now. He's just kind of locked in. But Rocco, our shortstop Rocco Caballero, who was a defensive player on our football team, is a sophomore in a loaded football team. Warren's been pretty good the last 3 years since my brother took over. And he's just a tough kid. He's tough as nails, and he can catch. He plays short. He can pitch. He's having a good year too. So these guys are all guys that have been with us in the program, and our catcher is doing a real good. Daniel Quadras, he's kind of come out of nowhere and blossomed. A really good receiver, catch throw guy. But the Angel Cervantes is the one I want to mention because he threw a no-hitter on Saturday against Lucerna on 74 pitches. And he's a bulldog already. He's already got that mentality, and he's just a tough kid. But the thing, again, going back to the success, they're just great kids of character, like high character kids, and great work ethic. Like I call them throwback kids. They're throwback kids. I tell them to run through the wall head first. They're going to run through the wall head first. They're not going to look at you crazy. And we pay attention to details. The little thing. My thing is the little things aren't little in baseball. They're huge. Everything's huge. And I could break down a play or a bat or a pitch in every game that changed the game. And so today was one of them.
Yeah.
We had second and third no outs in the first inning after they scored 2, and we didn't score on that. And so it's a learning lesson that the kids get. And they agree. I have my big number 3 hitter up, and normally we're going to put the ball in there. We're going to bunt and get that run in. And then we're actually 2 bunts away from tying the game in the first inning. But you got your big guys who are hot, and Gulo's hit 5 home runs lately. So,
Sounds like you're second-guessing yourself.
I am second-guessing myself, right? That's what I'm doing. So if I bunt him, people are like, he's hot. He's our power guy. Let's have a big inning. But I'm thinking, hey, let's get back in this game. We faced a guy that I want to mention his name, Christian Bando over at Gar. Just lights out today. 13 strikeouts in 6 innings, and great composure. And I've seen a huge growth in him from last year and this year. Last year he was pretty animated and pretty disrespectful. This year I've scouted Gar.
Maturity.
Huge. I hugged him after the game. I said that was one of the best high school performances I've seen in 34 years, and I appreciate how you were. And he even yelled at his dugout a couple times, hey, stop it. Don't talk.
Wow, so some leadership too. There you go.
But I also noticed I wanted to mention too, and I want to say this because I want other kids to be like this. He's been hurt, and I've scouted quite a few of their games this year, and he's in the dugout not playing, and he's a great hitter too, by the way. And he's the bat boy on the team. He runs out there, grabs the bat. He's locked in the dugout, and I'm watching this year because I was really disappointed the way he acted last year. And he's a completely different guy. And I asked him, what's the difference between this year and last year? You shoved it, we beat you last year. And he says, talking crap doesn't work. So he was locked in today, and I'm really proud of that kid. And he's signed to Long Beach State, and they're getting a really good lefty.
That's great.
Really good lefty.
That's great.
Let's go down memory lane. You and I are kind of joined at the hip here.
You look exactly the same as you did 20 years ago when we were doing shows and stuff.
Well, my goal is not to age. I don't
see
see any reward in getting older.
I see that.
Maybe we're mature and have a little bit
We'll
more
be here
fun.
with Tarek 20 years from now. He's going to look exactly
No,
the same.
he'll never change. When you were at Roosevelt, talk about coaching in the city, overcoming the different obstacles that are the city. You had success there. You went to the championship game at Dodger Stadium. Was it 2001? You lost to Chatsworth 2-1.
Yes.
Joe Gunts,
Yes.
great pitcher, now an assistant coach at Harvard Westlake,
Yes.
pitching coach. You lost there, but the experience of building the Roosevelt program, which is still good today, and beat your team at Warren.
Yes.
What was it like in the city section?
I'll tell you, it was tough. Like, it is not easy coaching in the city section at all. And I used to always say,
So you have respect for those guys that are doing it.
oh yeah, they're grinding. They don't get support. The facilities are bad. You know, we were at a park. Eric Simon wrote a great article one year in 2001 about our facilities and the winos that lived in the stands, literally, you know, and how our kids' cleats were ripped, and how Chatsworth had all the, you know, the personal coaches, and we had nothing, you know, and that's how it is. And you know, the facilities are bad alone. The worst part though was a shocker to me coming over, and I come over from Southgate, which I think at the time was a good community, and I'm going to say that because I grew up there and went there. I was amazed a couple times when I went to drop off a kid or pick a kid up. I found out my first year there, one kid was living on his own. Wow. And I'm like, what are you doing? A little studio place. The place was a mess. It was tiny. It was dirty. And I said, where's your parents? Oh, they're in Mexico. And who do you live with? My brother. Where's your brother? Oh, he's been in Mexico. How long? Oh, for 2 months. So you're living on your own and you're in high school? You know, and those are the things. And then we were in Boyle Heights, which was still not a very good neighborhood. But so not only are you coaching and trying to develop kids and character and all that, there's issues that they have that no one even knows about.
Right.
You know, there's so much. The plight there is ridiculous. The drugs and the gangs are deep. They're deeply rooted. They're generational. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed there, and what was hard to leave Roosevelt, because I was offered I'm sure you know, the El Camino job back in 06 when Matt left, and why I couldn't take it, because one of my close friends, who was a Roosevelt grad, my closest friend, says, they don't need you over there. The kids here need you, you know, and that resonated with me, and I was like, God.
Then it must have been hard for you to leave Roosevelt, too.
I'll tell you, when I left Roosevelt, and I left Roosevelt first to coach at Cathedral for 3 years, I cried. I literally cried. I cried leaving the school to come to Warren. I was coaching at Cathedral for 3 years, but I was still teaching at Warren. And I remember leaving the school crying, and these gangster kids and hugging me. And just and I was late.
How'd that make you feel?
I can tell you, I tried to change my mind, and I did change my mind. I tried to get my job back at Roosevelt, and I did get my job back at Roosevelt. It was a mess. It's a long story. It's a book, how that went. And God's plan was for me to be at Warren. But it was really interesting because one day I was late to work, and I was off campus because our school got shut. Our school got broken into 6 different schools with 6 different budgets and 6 different principals. Really weird at Roosevelt because we weren't performing well academically, and so the mayor took over. I don't know if you remember, Villanueva took over, and so my small school was off campus at East LA Occupational Center and Skill Center, and so there was no PE area, so we had to go to Lincoln Park. And so if I one day I drove late to work, and I had about 8 or 9 kids waiting for me that were supposed to go to class. They were in my PE class, but not that period, not first period. And I'm like, oh, coach, you're okay. I was about 10 or 15 minutes late. I don't know can't remember why it was. And they're saying, oh, and they all hugged me. And they said, we're so glad you're okay. We're going to go to class. I go, you guys were waiting for me? They go, yeah, we were worried because you weren't here yet, and you're always here early with the door open. I had a little cubby with the door open outside. It was a janitor's room. It was a makeshift office. It was an old janitor's custodian room. So I said, went back to my wife, these kids are special. They need adults in their life. Yeah. And the conversations that they would have that I would listen to are not like what I hear at Warren, or not what I grew up, or not what you're going to hear in Orange County.
Different set of problems, huh?
They were
real problems.
Real problems. They were basically growing up, raising themselves on the street.
Wow.
And the things they said are way above a high school kid. The things they were going through, what they were talking with boys and girls and partying and all this stuff was like, And I had fun as a high school kid, but that was sad.
Does that make sometimes, Coach, we all know you got to get into a kid sometimes. And when those are real life problems happening, does it make it a little harder to keep those kids accountable, even though you know it might be what's best for them?
So here's what's that's a great question. And here's what's interesting. My principal called me in the office one day. She said, Scott, what are you doing? Like, what is it that you're doing? I'm not saying that what you're doing is right or wrong. Your baseball team's winning. You're beating the teams in the Valley. You're traveling to Hawaii and Florida, and you're beating all these top teams. And you're getting your kids to overachieve. All your PE kids are dressing and running, even the gang kids. Like, what is it that you're doing? And I said, she goes, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I want to know because I want the classroom teachers to do the same, to get the kids to overachieve. And what I felt right away immediately, I said, well, because they generally know I care about them. They know I really care about them and I invest in them. But as far as your question about getting on the kids, those kids that are on the street, they crave discipline. It sounds weird.
Yep.
But they crave discipline. And I never disrespected those kids. But I did pull aside and say, what the heck are you doing? Listen to what's going on right now. And you can't do that. And this is why. And I'm really disappointed in you. And you come off a little hard, but with respect. And then they respect you. And then all of a sudden they know you care because nobody really cares about them. And I hate to say it, it's a sad thing to say, and it might not be politically correct, but I know because I was in it with them. There's kids that their parents don't care. And sometimes it's because they're a single parent and they're busy working 2 jobs and they're trying to survive and they have 5 or 6 other kids to worry about. But there's a lot of things going on in the inner city that, and I always said this, it'll be funny if Tom Usmore listen to this. I always said this to my friends, my coaching friends. Tom Usmore would never go through what I have going through right now. He's got that beautiful field, and he's like.
That's when he was at Chatsworth. Now he's even better off.
Now he's better off. I know that. Tom, I love you, man. You're an amazing coach. You're my mentor. I appreciate all you helped me with throughout the years. But I would always say that Tom would never go through one. Eric wrote an article, and he followed me one day. I would have to. I had bought this farm truck. It was literally a truck off a farm in Malibu, because we didn't have a field on campus, and so I would drive this farm truck who I left at school, never registered it, and I would load up the bin, the stuff from the bin on the campus. I would drive it to the park, and then we would break it down, unload it, set up the field. Then afterwards, load it back up, take it back to the field, break it all down into the bin. And Eric was impressed with how much stuff I had loaded up on the back of that truck, And then he went and he saw the homeless people living in the park and the winos, and he was kind of amazed. He wrote a real nice article back then about that. But it's a lot of hard work. It's not just not that the field is not on. There's no field, right? It's off campus, and you're at the mercy of a park, because sometimes they say, "Oh, you can't practice today." And if you've ever been to Evergreen Park, I don't know if you have. It's an all-dirt infield, right? And there's no mound. And there's cement 180 feet in right field that goes up an embankment. It's not even a baseball field. And for our kids to work out there, it's not fun. It's not the same as what I have now at Warren. A beautiful field and a lot of support, a lot of resources and a true community. So it's a really hard job. I know that coaches finally got a raise.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, wow. I mean, I don't think I ever got a raise all those years there. And I don't think there's been a raise since I left there, 10, 13
No, it's the first one in years.
Yeah. So they deserve way more than that.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, because it's not easy. It's really not. There's a lot of things going on that hinder your job. And like I said, the plight of just being in the inner city is tough, as it is.
We're happy to be back in studio because COVID took us away from the studio. That's not a big deal. What you went through, and I know you okayed this subject matter, you lost a 39-year-old son to COVID. How has that affected you as a coach? And more importantly, how has that affected you in your life, and how will you be able to cope with losing such a young man who you love so much?
Yeah, it's not easy. My son Brian played for me in high school, in 4 years at 3 different schools. And so, he was going to coach again with me this year. He coached my first year at Warren. He was going to coach again this year. He was super excited. My grandson, his son, is an 8th grader right now that feeds into Warren. So it was, obviously he went in with COVID. You never think he's going to die, and when he went on the ventilator, he went 4 hours later. So it was a shock, you know, and so it's a struggle almost daily. It's really tough. And I think with such a great group of high school kids, and I have to say my administration is unbelievable. It's, you know, we're in the kid business, and I've been around 30 years, you know, coaching 34 years, and been through many administrations, obviously. I've never seen an administration that's so focused on what's best for the kids and generally loving the kids. And she's that same, and they're the same way, our principal and our assistant principal, our athletic director. It's the same way with the coaches. Like, you know, they've been super supportive. It's been easy. I obviously took time off, which helped a lot. And my assistant coaching staff, and my assistant coach and my coaching staff is wonderful too. And it's tough. I'm a believer. I hold firm in my belief that, you know, God's with me and He's going to carry me through this, and He has, and He's given me strength. So with that and my family, my wife and my 3 kids, now it's, you know, we talked about baseball taking time off, you know, taking your mind off the tragedy, which it does, except the fact that one of the last conversation I did have with my son, where he wasn't on Ativan 2 days before he passed away, he was fine. He was going to go home that day. Is I was watering the field first day of school, and he was like, and we were FaceTime. He was like, "Dad, let me see the grass. Let me see the grass. I want to see the grass." And you know, I'm watering the infield while I'm showing him the grass for, you know, half an hour. And I just thought that was kind of funny. I was laughing to myself at him, like, we're talking, but he's looking at the grass the whole time I'm watering, right? And it was a really great baseball conversation. It was all about baseball, and there was a little bit of the COVID in it because he didn't, and I know people want to, the question is, was he vaccinated, right? He didn't want to be vaccinated. And right after that day, my wife and I were getting our second shot.
Wow.
And I told him that, but I told him this, I said, you know, we're getting our second shot. I said, knowing what you're going through now in the hospital, would you have gotten vaccinated? He said, absolutely, 100% I would. You know, I would. So, and again, even that day, he was supposed to go home that day.
Wow.
You know, I didn't think he was going to pass away 3 days later, 4 days later.
Well, Scott, you're a special guy. And I've known you for a long time, and that's why I wanted you on the show.
Thank you.
I know for most people, they probably wouldn't want to share that story, but I know for you, it's therapeutic.
It is. Now it is.
And it's great to see you again. You look
Thank you,
great. You have
sir.
a great family. You got a great son over here.
Thank you.
And I hope life treats you well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank
Scott
you.
Pearson.
Thank
Great
you for
guy.
having us on. And can I make one suggestion?
Sure.
before I leave?
I wear makeup. Is that the suggestion?
No, I was a little disappointed.
I didn't get the makeup treatment this time because you used to always make me look really good on here. We don't have any Angel bobbleheads. We're doing Orange County.
Well, we can get
baseball.
that done. We
Okay,
can
it's
get
got to
that
get. I'm gonna send you guys. I'm gonna drop them off because I drive by here every day on the way to work. I'm dropping you off some Angel bobbleheads.
Larry Zaval, our producer,
You got that?
Yeah.
he said thumbs up on that
Next
one.
show, I want to see Angel bobblehead. You'll
All
get some.
Thank
you got
Thank you, Scott. Everybody's talking to Scott Pearson. All right, we got about a minute left. Tarek, what are you covering this week?
Oh, man, I'm actually going to cover some Foothill League baseball. Hart High School has a chance to wrap up their Foothill League championship. They got a 2-game series with Valencia, who's 2 games back. So if Valencia can win 2 in a row over Hart, they'll get a share of the Foothill League title. That's where I'll be next week.
What are you most excited about that you covered this week?
This week?
I'm throwing these questions at you
Yeah,
fast
I'm like,
and
well,
furious.
yeah, more West Valley League baseball. It's the city section. There's only a couple weeks left. We got to see who's going to get what seed for the city section playoffs, who's going to get back to Dodger Stadium. I wrote a story on Dominic Cervantes, was a freshman for Birmingham when they won the CIF city title in 2019. Now he's a senior. He's trying to get back to Chavez Ravine, so we'll see if he does that.
Yeah, at one point, Birmingham had won 3 in a row. They had the 1 year off, and then San Pedro won last year. Birmingham's right in the thick of it, but again, I like Granada Hills. The Highlanders have a great team. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Next week, we're going to have a football show. It's draft night, the NFL draft, and a lot of local kids who played high school here are going to be in that draft. Guys like Kayvon Thibodeau and Matt Corral. Those are some pretty big names, but they were great stars locally here in Southern California. I want to thank again Scott Pearson from the very fine Warren Bears baseball program, and of course Tarek Fattal to my left. That's going to wrap it up. Next Thursday, 9 o'clock, draft show right here. You're going to love it on LA 36. Good night, everybody.